The lamps flickered against the walls of a Roman house. The room was crowded, hushed, waiting. A group of new believers stood in line, ready to step into baptism's waters. For weeks they had prepared, fasting, praying, learning to leave behind their old lives. And this was not casual, though. Every word was chosen with care. Bread and wine waited on the table. Leaders prepared to lay hands in prayer, and the whole gathering leaned forward, expectant. In the year 225, a leader named Hippolytus wrote down all the moments like this and how they should unfold. Baptism, communion, prayer, ordination, all ordered with reverence. He called it the Apostolic Tradition. Why? Because even when Christians faced suspicion and danger, worship needed clarity, not chaos. And his record became one of the earliest guides to Christian liturgy, shaping the rhythm of worship for centuries to come. From the That's Jesus channel, welcome to Coach, Church Origins and Church History. I'm Bob Balch, and on Mondays we stay between 0 and 500 AD. Today we turn to the year 225. A Roman leader named Hippolytus recorded how Christians baptized new believers, shared communion, and ordained ministers. He called it the Apostolic Tradition. These weren't empty directions. They were survival tools. In a time when persecution pressed hard and gatherings were fragile, his work gave believers order and unity. What he wrote would echo in worship practices for centuries, East and West alike. But was it just ritual, or did structure actually help keep devotion alive? By the early 3rd century, the Christian movement in Rome had grown enough to be noticed and questioned. Believers met in houses, sometimes in secret, but their gatherings varied. Some were marked by deep reverence. Others, according to critics, fell into disorder. Hippolytus, a presbyter, an elder who taught and led, worried that sloppy worship could harm the church's witness. He feared confusion inside would weaken believers already pressed from outside. So he began writing down what he believed matched the practices handed down from the apostles. Baptism, communion, ordination, daily prayer, all with clear steps. In his apostolic tradition, he insisted that worship should follow order. Quote, "Everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way." And that phrase from the Bible showed the heart of his concern. Order was not about control. It was about keeping worship Christ-centered and unshaken when trials come. Hippolytus didn't just list the rules, though. He painted a picture of worship. Baptism was a journey. Candidates prepared through weeks of fasting and teaching. On the night itself, they renounced Satan. They declared faith in Jesus, and they were immersed 3 times in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And they were clothed in white, anointed with oil, and welcomed into the family of faith. Communion, or the Eucharist, followed prayers of thanksgiving over bread and wine shared by all who gathered. It was not a performance, it was a family at the Lord's table. Ordination also carried weight. Leaders were chosen with the agreement of the people and confirmed by the laying on of hands. Centuries later, historians would note how Hippolytus preserved the sense of order. As one record recalls, quote, "We bless the Maker of all through His Son, Jesus Christ," end quote. For him, these words weren't a formula. They were devotion expressed with discipline, a pattern meant to hold steady even when persecution struck. Now, the apostolic tradition quickly became more than just notes on parchment. It was a lifeline for Christians in Rome. When persecution erupted in the decades that followed, believers knew what to do. They knew how to baptize. They knew how to share communion. And they knew how to set apart leaders. In times of chaos, order gave courage. Hippolytus showed that worship was not random. It was rooted in Jesus, steady, even when the empire shook. Later writers pointed back to these same practices, proving that his framework had endured. Though some details changed over the centuries, the core remained: baptism with preparation, and communion with thanksgiving, and ordination with prayer. One ancient description put it simply, quote, "We were buried with him through baptism into death." For Christians facing prison or death, these words carried power. Their faith was not fragile, their worship had shape, and their hope had rhythm. But Hippolytus' passion also stirred tension. He resisted leaders that he thought were too lenient, sometimes clashing with bishops in Rome. His desire for discipline made him both respected and controversial. So what was it? Was his vision too strict, or was it exactly what the church needed to survive? The Apostolic Tradition shaped the church's worship. Eastern and Western traditions both echoed his framework: baptism, communion, ordination. They became the steady rhythm of Christian life across generations. But his real gift was not ritual for ritual's sake. He showed that structure could serve devotion. Order gave scattered believers a sense of belonging. Shared prayers and practices, it reminded them that they stood in continuity with those who came before. Today, many think formality kills faith. Yet Hippolytus reminds us that order and spirit are not enemies. Clear rhythms can actually guard reverence and focus hearts on Jesus. His concern for unity speaks across the centuries. When the church gathers with shared patterns of prayer and sacrament, it resists both chaos and complacency. And what he passed on still challenges us. Let structure be an anchor, not a chain. Hippolytus reminds us that worship practices are never meant to be empty motions. Baptism, communion, prayer, leadership, they were intended as living encounters with Christ. That leaves us with a challenge. Have our habits become routine, or do they serve as rhythms that root us in Jesus? Now, routine dulls, rhythm renews. Routine checks a box. Rhythm keeps us connected. So ask yourself, when you pray, when you sing, when you take communion, is it just another moment on the calendar, or is it an opportunity to meet the living God? Hippolytus wanted believers to have order that deepened devotion, even under pressure. And we need that same thing today. Shape your worship life so that every action, every prayer, every song, every step of obedience points back to Jesus with clarity and reverence. If this story of Hippolytus' Apostolic Tradition challenged or encouraged you, like, comment, and share it with a friend. They might really need to hear it. Leave a review on your podcast app, and don't forget to follow Coach for more episodes every week. Check out the show notes. It has the full transcript and sources that were used for this episode. And if you look closely, you'll find some contrary opinions in there too. We do that on purpose. The Amazon links can help you get resources for your own library while giving me a little bit of a kickback. As an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases. You never know what we're going to cover next on Coach. Every episode dives into a different corner of church history, but on Mondays we stay between 0 and 500 AD. And if you'd rather catch these stories on YouTube, check us out at the That's Jesus channel. Thanks for listening to Coach, Church Origins and Church History. I'm Bob Balch with the That's Jesus channel. Have a great day and be blessed. And you know, order is important. My sock drawer needs a lot of order, more than Hippolytus ever dreamed of, I'm sure.